Welcome to this morning's edition of the Morning Briefing. I'm Jeff DeForest along with Mike Lubitz. Very happy to have you with us here on NoFilter.net, K-Fane TV, and all the other glamorous and glorious and well-watched and observed platforms that the program airs on. Good to be with you. I guess we should begin with song here today. Miami has the Dolphins, the greatest football team. They take the ball from 20 to 20 like no one's ever seen. Why are you laughing, Lubie?
I'm laughing because I feel like I sort of reformed in the last few years. I don't really let sports get to me too much.
Yes.
The last 2 weeks.
This got to you.
The last 2 weeks, that's not the case.
It was a tale of two cities last night. It really was. And if you were a player of the underdog, I wasn't able to do the mathematical permutations and calculations in my head because I'm not sure.
We're saying like 5 or 6 to 1.
Yeah, I don't know what a 14-point spread. I mean, think about this. You couldn't have gotten better odds if you were gambling at the newly opened Hard Rock Hotel and Casino here in South Florida. Now that gambling has been legalized in the state under some very fugazi circumstances. Nobody really knows exactly what it is. Well, you know what? That's sovereign land out there. We don't know what to say to these people. But you couldn't have gotten better odds if you were gambling that Don Shula was going to come back to life and lead the Dolphins onto the field at Hard Rock Stadium last night here in South Florida. They're taking on the Tennessee Titans, a decrepit team that was coming into the ballgame at a robust 4-8. Yep. Will Levis, who gave rise to hope that maybe, he was announced as the permanent starter over Ryan Tannehill, which... should we get you started on Ryan Tannehill, Lubie? All we have to do is like opening up a can of sardines, my friend. You just get that little screw cap and then boom, it opens and there's that stench. Ryan Tannehill. We went through our struggles with Ryan Tannehill. I respect the fact that he actually became an NFL quarterback that was deemed to be not necessarily the greatest of all time. It's not like he was Johnny Unitas or Joe Montana, but they seemed to be at least a functional winning quarterback for a period of time, as long as he had Derrick Henry to hand the ball off to and didn't have to throw the ball. Because the joke about Tannehill was what? That he could overthrow a small country when he was with the Miami Dolphins. But we have two games rolling last night. And of course, our central point of interest was the Miami Dolphins against the Tennessee Titans. The Dolphins with everything on the table. I mean, you couldn't be in a more dream situation. Got a shitty team coming in here with a quarterback who, after that initial start and showing some flashes, and Will Levis had deteriorated to the point where you were wondering if they might want to think about or consider bringing Tannehill back. I don't know. Did he have his leg amputated or something? Is he eligible to come back and play?
I think he can come back. They just want to go with Levis, good or bad.
Yes, and it was mostly bad. It was ugly. And you saw that early in the ball game as a Miami Dolphins get their first score as Levis throws the ball right into the belly. I mean, that could have been Fridge Perry with the pick of a giant defensive lineman in Seiler who goes into the end zone untouched, 7-0. In fact, in this game, Tennessee gives away essentially 3 touchdowns. They had the muff punt, which was an atrocity. Are you any kind of a lip reader? Because I think when the punt returner, Guerrero or something like that, goes over to the sidelines there, he's in front of Mike Vrabel after the special teams coordinator and coach had slammed his headsets to the ground like he was Bobby Knight throwing a chair or punching out some cop in Puerto Rico. And he goes over to Vrabel, and I think I saw Vrabel mouth the words, "What the fuck was that?" And this game, I mean, they were exasperated because they were handing this game on a platter like they were bringing around a tray of hors d'oeuvres. Would you like another meatball, Mr. Lubitz? And you're like, yeah, I'll take a handful of those. I mean, you were always pretty gluttonous when it came to this sort of thing. Are you one of those guys that ambushed the people with the hors d'oeuvres as they came out of the kitchen? You were just kind of waiting there?
I'd like you. Shirley won't let me. Shirley never lets me do that. I would love to do that.
You're high-ing and low-fiving the people with the trays there as they come out onto the court there and are announced. That's always great. So this game is in the bag. I mean, the Tennessee Titans are determined to give it away. They have another fumble deep in their own territory that ends up in a Dolphins touchdown. Dolphins are running the ball at will in this game, but Mike McDaniel, this genius coach that we have here in South Florida, and I want to like the guy. He seems like a very likable and embraceable human being. He's a big departure from the usual hard-on coach that you get. Well, you know what? we're going to pound it up their ass. And if it doesn't, he's creative, he's imaginative, he's innovative. And at the same time, I guess he's not Kyle Shanahan yet.
Yeah.
He might think so, but it works for Shanahan. And it doesn't always work for Mike McDaniel, who then was relying on, and the big acquisition in the offseason, everybody was talking about this, Lubie, Vic Fangio, man. Where's Fangio going? Fangio, this old fart. I mean, why not just dig up Buddy Ryan?
Honestly.
Now, he has a tremendous, impeccable reputation. And, there was competition for his services. How many times do you see this where an assistant coach, essentially, I don't know, was Fangio ever a head coach?
Yeah, remember he was a head coach for the Broncos and sucked. He was an utter disaster.
Oh, that's right. That's right. They went to the old man.
Yes.
In the Broncos' enormous struggles, or so it seems. I mean, maybe they found the solution now with Sean Payton, who has them in a position to go to the playoffs after an atrocious start. But, Fangio is supposed to be this guy that's preaching the gospel when it comes to defense. And yet last night, I mean, some of this stuff is unprecedented, although you're saying that it's not exactly what it appears to be, where Tennessee got the ball back with 4 minutes and change.
Yeah.
Drove it down the field against this Civ defense that is also known as the prevent, which if ever there was a cliche that was applicable every time that you see it, it's that the prevent defense does one thing, and it prevents winning.
Yeah.
May as well be known as the Red Sea defense, because you're allowing other teams to just march right down the field, chop you up like you were chopped liver, and roll into the end zone for a score that was not exactly inconsequential.
All right, made it a game.
So, I mean, a lot of things fell in terms of NFL history. This is a great stat. Teams trailing in the final 3 minutes of a ball game by 14 points or more, collectively in the history of the National Football League, had a record of 4 wins and 2,074 losses. It never happens, Lubie. And it certainly never happens in regulation, because all 4 of those previous wins were accomplished in overtime, which you would have thought that Vrabel would have been determined to try, if he had any shot at all in this game, to maybe force overtime by trailing 27-13. What possessed him to go for 2 on that 2-point conversion try that they did after the first touchdown to slice the lead down and eventually cut it to 6, which was remarkable.
Because going to overtime on the road, as bad as the Dolphins were, you presume they'd win. He's like, even if we don't get this, we'll still be down by a touchdown and a 2-point conversion. So we'll still just need a 2-point conversion to tie if we have to tie. But I'd rather get this, be up, be down 6, and then 7 can win. Look, it was ridiculous. And usually 2-point conversions don't work. The Dolphins defense was so bad that they scored it easy. The defensive end falls down. The corner's nowhere to be found. So he obviously realized, oh, shit, they can't stop us right now. Let's just go for the 2 and really put our foot on their throat, unlike Mike McDaniel, who couldn't do that.
This probably was troubling for a lot of people that were writing on a deadline. I don't know. The people still write on a deadline. Newspapers nearly extinct around the country, but there had to be many people filing reports that were written online or for various outlets and platforms. That and it's always one of the frightening things when you've already written the lead and the body of the story, because you're only going to have about 15 minutes or so after the ball game ends. And this game ended close to the stroke of midnight last night.
Midnight.
After beginning at 8:15. Yeah, you would have thought it was the Army-Navy game all over again. Yeah. No, that game wouldn't take so long because they never passed the ball. Find somebody who can throw, please. Service academies once. Air Forces managed to do it, right? They passed the ball a little bit. They're almost looking like BYU when they're out there. Maybe that's Western Air that helps them in that category. But the other 2 teams are dreadful when it comes to passing the football. In this case, though, I mean, you're in a perfect position to win the game. Everything is on the table for the Miami Dolphins. And you're forcing these people that are trying to file a story on the game to completely change their leads. Worse than the miracle at the Meadowlands. I thought Lavernius Coles had a catch in the game.
Yep, that's what it felt like. Yep.
Crazy that they would come back and win inside the final 3 minutes. So you're saying that's a little bogus, some of these things that they're ascribing to how this never happened before? Because they got the ball back with like 4.5 minutes to go in the game when they mounted the comeback.
3 minutes, they already had marched right down the field. Look, the defense still could have held. They're around the 20. So, yes, a defense like that should have been able to still hold them. But they had sliced right down the defense in a minute and a half. And I think they scored in like the next play at 3 minutes. Like they scored at like 2:45. So it's not like they got the ball with 3 minutes and then scored 2 touchdowns. Now, don't get me wrong. They scored both their touchdowns in a total, I think, 215.
Yeah.
So, it still was ridiculous, but
There's no way you lose that ball game. I mean,
no,
if you're laying 14
zero.
points with the Miami Dolphins, you're probably feeling, hey, please,
Recover.
just kick a field goal, even if you don't need it, so that we can cover the point spread here. That's a lot of points to give up in the National Football League. Never would you have thought. And if you made a money line parlay last night on the two underdogs, you cash big. So you're saying that's like 6-1, a 14-point spread on the money line?
Like, our buddy said if you bet 100, you would have won 600.
Okay, so if you'd bet 100 on the parlay, both teams, both underdogs, the Giants in their game against Green Bay, which was another. I mean, you talk about a tale of two cities. Everybody in South Florida is completely depressed. They're passing out free morphine at Dunkin' Donuts so that you can overcome the absolute despondency that the entire city is feeling about the Miami Dolphins, who we had cruising. Finally, there was a magic carpet ride, Lubie. It was Viva Las Vegas. They had Elvis impersonators on the sideline instead of cheerleaders at the game because we're getting ready to go to the Super Bowl here with this Miami Dolphin team. And they had to leave in body bags leaving the stadium. Incredible. As they sent the fans home packing there with a stunning loss. And that's with a team that just fell to 9-4, which overall you would have to say, based on the level of mediocrity and the number of teams that are hovering around 7-6, 6-7, 9-4 would be great, except in the way that it came about, which gives rise to, you remember this guy because I've referenced him. A lot of people would have no idea who I'm talking about. And I'm not sure that he's still around. Matthew Lesko, the guy that was
the question marks.
Trying to tell you, he had the question marks on the jacket. Did that not, be that would epitomize the appearance of what's happening with that Dolphin franchise with both Mike McDaniel and Fangio as coaches, defensive coordinator and head coach. And you'd have to wonder, what the fuck are these guys doing? How is it possible to blow that game? It's not. And on the other side of things, you have the New York Giants with this Tommy DeVito story. One of the great stories, I think, in NFL history. Is it even real? This looks like it's some kind of a movie with Jake Gyllenhaal playing a quarterback or Keanu Reeves, doesn't it? Tommy DeVito, the guy, he literally is no bigger. He's as diminutive as Danny DeVito by quarterback standards. He makes Pat Hayden look like he was a giant when he was playing. And has no credentials whatsoever coming into this position, where he's now started 4 straight games for the New York Giants and won the last 3 and has looked sharp doing it. This is a kid that's living in the shadows of the stadium at home with his mother and father at like 25 years old. Now, might be time to move out, Tommy, huh? I mean, that's a nice part of the story, very touching. What do you think, Lubie? Isn't it time to get out of the parents' household there? No?
Yeah. I mean, we'll see.
There's a guy that looks like he was made man in the Gambino crime family that was part of the family's contingent last night. I mean, they're really capitalizing on this thing. There's about 10 pages in the New York Post, even though my South Florida edition doesn't have coverage of last night's game. Just the pregame hype is all centered around Tommy DeVito. This is the big story coming out of New York. And it's a nice story, right? I mean, here's a city now that has nothing but frustration when it came to their 2 football teams this year. And all of a sudden, they're riding a wave of euphoria as the Jets had bounced back and won their ball game with a 30-point second half behind Zach Wilson. This is great, too. I mean, you talk about how unmerciful the New York press is and how the players sometimes are just shy away from this because they can't take the heat. What happened after Zach Wilson's marvelous performance in the second half for the Jets? The big story in the New York Post today. No matter what he does the rest of the way, we got to get rid of him. That's a nice thing to wake up to, right? You're thinking, where's the love? I mean, if a guy finally has a good ball game, maybe the best of his career, and headline in the paper the next day is, doesn't matter what this guy does, make sure he's no longer in the state of New York or New Jersey after this season is over. So, yeah, they're riding a wave of euphoria. They have this Tommy DeVito story. I don't know how much further it goes. The Dolphins, in the meantime, have to take on this Zach Wilson-led New York Jet team in their next ball game and now find themselves in a little bit of a precarious spot.
Yes.
Because the Jets will be the last of the so-called Putz teams that they've been playing. And they gave away a certain victory last night, up 14 with 4 minutes to go against a lousy Tennessee team and a rookie quarterback who had been going south for the last couple of weeks, and you can't find a way to win. This was like Super Bowl III. Lubie, the Jets beating the Baltimore Colts. It seemed like a veritable impossibility, and yet that's what's great. It only enhances your argument about Florida State, Lubie,
Yeah,
doesn't
yeah,
it?
you never know. You never know.
That you
It's
have to let things play out. But I mean, you were home free. I had a horse jump the rail at the wire. Sometimes you see a clip of this. I saw Scott Van Pelt actually had a clip of this as it was a race at Gulfstream Park where the horse is 2 feet from the wire and he jumps the rail and jumps into the lake in the infield. I have all my money riding on this horse. It's about to turn my life around. And you're like, well, what? He made a left turn? Miracle at the Meadowlands. We referenced Lavernius Coles. He makes a catch, seemed inconsequential. Late in the ball game, lead is cut from like 31-6 to 31-13. You keep watching, and sure enough, they get some fat guy to make a touchdown named Jumbo at the end of the ball game, and they end up winning it. And everybody woke up and was stunned. But this was right there with it. You've done a good job, though, in tempering your psychosis over this particular loss, Libby. I don't know if you have any final parting shot about last night's game.
The funny thing is, I like this team. I like the coaching staff, but to me, it seems like they continue to struggle in close. Whether it's a good team, so that makes it a close game, or they play a bad team in a close game, they seem to struggle in these situations. And as much as I like Mike McDaniel, it doesn't feel like he's overcoming it. It feels like he's getting worse in these situations.
Could be too smart for his own good.
Yes.
I think, what we're seeing that sometimes. And it happens, right? Where smart people become insufferable in their stubbornness, their reluctance to just embrace simplicity and say, you know what? Don't make too much of this. I know you have all these great wide receivers and two who can chuck the rock, but you have a running game. You have a guy that's averaging 10 yards a carry. Give him the ball. You have the third leading rusher in the National Football League, even though you don't like to run the ball, who's leading the league in touchdowns. Give him the ball. But you can overcomplicate things, and where simplicity might be bliss, right? As we say, we'll leave you with this. Don't get cute. Whatever you're doing in life, if it's working, don't get cute. Right? Put your hands behind your back. You're in a boxing match. Boom! All of a sudden, you're Victor Ortiz. All right. We'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. It was an entertaining night of football, it turned out, as the two dogs prevailed on the Monday Night Football twin bill that was going off simultaneously. Made it a little bit more difficult to track. But nonetheless, it was wild times here at Hard Rock Stadium, where we originate from here in South Florida. We will see you next time. For Mike Lubie Lubitz, good job containing yourself and restraining yourself on the program today. I'm Jeff DeForest, and thanks for tuning in to today's edition of the Morning Briefing.